comics guys who are the team that work on Hero. We have the writer-artist, and we have the colorist. And we're going to talk to them about their process, a little bit about their campaign. Whoa. Hold on, I'm coming across live. Like I can hear echo. All right, excellent. So, and my co-hosts here, everyone, why don't you guys introduce who you are and give us a little bit of what you do with the book. Why don't we start with Avery?
I'm Avery Butterworth. I'm a freelance illustrator, and I'm the colorist from my buddy Andrew here's original graphic novel, Hero.
And Andrew, why don't you tell us who you are?
Yeah, I am the creator and co-creator, co-writer, and illustrator for Hero. I'm a Jacksonville, Florida-based comic illustrator who's been on the fringes of the industry for a while now, mostly doing creator-owned and small press independent stuff. And Hero is a story that my kids and I helped me develop, and it's a kid-friendly action-adventure series. And I have a ball drawing it, and we're currently, Avery just started coloring book 2, and I'm in the middle of drawing and writing book 3. So if you guys back Hero book 1, trust me, there's a lot more to come.
And the book is pretty thick. How thick is book 1?
Book 1, there is 162 story pages that are fully colored. It's 150 pages is the main story. Then there's a 4-page epilogue and an 8-page backup story. There is some additional bonus stuff that we're going to include in the first full color edition, which includes pinups and so forth. So as of right this second, it's a 176-page graphic novel with 162 of it being story. But I am working on a new backup story that I want to include in it. So it'll be even bigger by the time it, hopefully by the time it sees print, it'll be even bigger. So
now this backup story, would that be a tier that you hit and that gets included, or you just thinking it has to be in it? So I'm going to...
It's one of these backup stories that when I originally thought of it, I thought I could put it anywhere in the series. I could include it anywhere and people would understand it. And I realize for it to have the biggest impact for what it is, it has to be in book 1, because there's an event that happens in book 1 that it refers to. And if I don't end up putting it into like book 2 or 3 or 4, people may not realize the connection to book 1. So it's one of these things where I'm kind of hitting myself saying, it needs to be in book 1. The reference needs to be there. So that's one of the reasons why I've decided it's got to be in there. If I'm going to do it, it's got to be in book 1. So book 1 is going to have some more pages. Exactly how many yet, I don't know. I got to sit down and draw out the idea, but it's definitely something that's coming.
Well, let's go to the let's go sort of back a little bit to the beginning of. You got this idea. I remember you talked about this on a different show.
Mm-hmm.
Outside, you saw this raccoon.
Yep.
Out comes this character out of you. When does it start to form a story, or the character starts to form a backstory? Why don't you give us a little bit about that?
Well, I had the story about where the idea originally came from was my dog and I went out for a walk in the morning where we were taking out the trash in the apartment complex we lived at. And on our way to the dumpster, this gigantic raccoon jumped out of the dumpster and ran past me. And for some reason, I got that image of this raccoon stuck in my head all day long. And later that day, hold on just a second. I'm actually going to bring up the image so I can share it with you guys. Later that day, I was laying down and I was thinking about it and I got this idea for an image in which there was a hero. And let me share this with you. I'm actually going to my website now, but this was the very first image of Hero I ever drew. And I came up with it that night. And the idea was a hero with a sword, and the sword was glowing, and he looked kind of like a raccoon. And there was a giant snake that was wrapping around behind him. And I went with an old fashioned silhouette idea for the snake, in which I one of the things we used to do in high school all the time was white acrylic splatter, where you would have a black background and you take a toothbrush, and you dip it in some white acrylic, and you splattered it everywhere. Well, I did that in the background to show the stars, so to say. And then the snake was all solid black, so he stood out on the starry background. And I drew this image, and I started talking to the kids about it, and I said, I got this idea for a hero. And at this point, I knew nothing about him other than the fact that he had a glowing sword, which actually never ever actually happens in the story. He doesn't have any special type of sword, at least not yet. And Mike and I and Ayla, we started talking about what this image represented. It's like you look at a picture and you say, have you ever watched a commercial on TV and wondered what's the rest of the story? Like, the commercial's the preview of a story, and there's something else there. You know, there's some other reason why these people are doing these things that they're doing. And we started talking about this image, and I said, well, why is he out here at nighttime? Why is there a snake? Why is, what kind of adventure is he on? And we started at that point developing the idea for the story. And it's kind of a spoiler for book one, but needless to say, this snake became our version of the Hydra. And that's all I'm going to say at this point. But it became an idea to meld this character in with Greek mythology, and that's where the whole thing started from. And we started talking about different ideas that we could throw this character into. We had an idea about a one-eyed bear who would be considered the Cyclops. We had idea for all these. Hero originally was going to go on very much like a Greek hero going on adventures, but in like an animal world. And by the time we got to the end of book one, we realized we had our own original idea we wanted to tell. So the whole story idea changed, but this is the one image that started the whole thing.
It's a great image, by the way.
Well, thank you.
And he really physically hasn't changed much at all.
A little bit. Originally, well, what's so funny about this is in the original black and white illustration, he doesn't have a tail, because I completely forgot to add his tail, and I had to go back and draw it and add it digitally in Photoshop. And I've actually made that mistake several times in working on here. I forget to draw his tail sometimes, and but no, this was a good representation for what he eventually became. His ears are different, his nose is different, his eyes and eyebrows are different, his hands are different, his feet are different, the clothing he wears is different, but the basis, the foundation for the character is right here in this illustration. Very innocent, very, the name Hero just jumped out to us when we saw this image. It's a small character who's going on a big adventure, and he's got a big threat that he's having to deal with, and he's going to be a hero. And that's where it started.
At what point do you start putting pen to paper, so to speak, as far as,
well,
that event happened, you drew this picture, then you talk about it with family, and when do you start?
Well, normally what happens is Michael and I will get together, and I'll think up an idea. And one of the things that we do is, when we did book one, we said, okay, this is where book one starts, and this is where book one ends. And in between, there's different plot points that we have to get to. And then what we did is we broke it into chapters. We said, okay, chapter one, we're introduced to the character, he gets his name, and then we have the time jump to where he's grown up and he's getting ready to go on his own adventures. Book two does this, this, this. Book three does this, this, this. And we sit down and we take one chapter at a time, and we say, okay, this is where the chapter starts. This is where the chapter ends. This is where the character begins in the adventure. This is where he needs to be by the end of the chapter. And then we try to fill in all the plot holes in between. And we just sit down and we talk about it. And we say, okay, wouldn't it be cool if he did this? And wouldn't it be cool if we introduced this character? And wouldn't it be cool if this happened? And maybe we planted this seed over here. And maybe this right here is a reference to something else. And then we sit down and we just talk it all out. And then I say, okay, I'm ready to go. Then I sit down and I usually do very small thumbnail sketches, and I lay out each page. Well, actually, I do it panel by panel, and then I break it down and say, okay, these 2 panels is 1 page, these 3 panels is another page. So I lay it out, and I usually have one big piece of paper with all these different panels on it. And then I say, okay, this one should be a double page splash. This one right here is a splash page because this panel is really important. And then I start setting it out page by page. And before we even write one line of dialogue, before we write anything out, I'm already laying out and penciling the pages. So usually what happens is I get to the end of the chapter, I've already drawn it all, and then I sit down and I go back page by page and I say, okay, what are they saying? What is the narration? What's happening? What do I need to tell the readers in order for them to be able to take the story from point A to the end of the story? And that's pretty much how we do it. And there was only one chapter in all 3 books so far that I actually sat down and wrote out the story before I started drawing it. And that was the story within a story. That was the one in which Hero and Pudge they're walking through the forest and he's telling him a story.
He's a bird.
Yes. He's a bird. Yep. And the story within a story, we wanted to be very, very succinct in what was being told and what was being said in the story. So I actually wrote that out ahead of time. And then I actually broke out each section into separate panels, and then I intermingled the actual story panels. And Avery did a fantastic job coloring those. Wonder if I could show you guys one of those. Let me see if I...
Yeah. As you go along, bring us visuals to that, because I got you white boxed.
Oh yeah, okay. Give me just a second.
Yeah.
I restarted my computer and everything's closed, so I got to restart everything.
Oh, that's fine. Take your time.
Well, at least my camera's working now, so I can't complain there. But just one second.
I got some tomfoolery in the chat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're picking on my shirt, which is, par for the course when it comes to John Dillard.
No, I'd actually just pick on the hat.
What happened?
Over your shoulder.
You got something to say about my hair, do you?
No, just the hat.
You don't like that hat?
Hey,
no.
Chris, what's that image that's in your icon? That looks really cool.
That's Siphon. She's the Last Snow Leopard. That's the main comic book series I'm working on.
Very nice. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I was hoping to, early on to get that artist, but he did, I think it was 4 illustrations for me, and I asked him at that point, and he was like, he didn't have the time to invest in doing a comic, so all I have are the illustrations.
Oh yeah. Oh, that really stinks.
But that does look pretty cool.
It does. It does. Very, very much up our alley style-wise,
He's got a lot of illustrations that he's, commissioned other artists to do of this character and of bits and pieces of book and stuff. So he's got a lot of material, and a lot of it. That's kind of why I'm glad he's here, because a lot of what you guys are both doing is sort of akin to each other. His adventure has a lot of sort of Eastern themes.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to evolve past just having Asian culture. It's during her journey, she's going to go into, I don't know, I would call them biomes. So she'll be in a place that sort of represents the tropics as far as Hawaii and that sort of vibe. You'll have desert areas. You'll have real heavy snowy areas, because it's part of the journey is every journey is interacting with other characters, but it's also the journey itself is going to be part of what she has to go up against. So when she goes through a mountain pass that's a blizzard's hitting it, it's how is she navigating while that's happening? How is she surviving while that's happening? So it's each area she's going to meet people from that area with that kind of culture. Like for Hawaii, I had a real heavy set otter laying on a surfboard that she thinks is in trouble, and she like swims out into the I don't know if it would be the Gulf or the K or what it would be, but she swims out there thinking she's going to save somebody, and it's just an otter just laying there relaxing in the water, and he laughs at her and picks her up and actually sets her on her stomach, and they meet that way.
Very cool. Very cool.
Now, the story within a story, I can see where you're denoting a change here.
Mm-hmm.
Avery, what is the feel that you're trying to go? It almost reminds me of like a paper, like, oh, he's unraveled a scroll and this story is on it.
That's pretty much exactly it.
Yeah, because at the beginning of the story, when he's starting out on his venture, his mom gives him a backpack full of supplies, and one of the things that's in there is a sketchbook and a stack of charcoal pencils, and she tells him, chronicle your journey while you're going along. And we thought it would be really cool if the story within a story was done with charcoal pencils, just like if Hero was actually drawing this story as he told it. I don't actually think he actually did draw it, but we just wanted to have that feel as we went through it. So, and Avery took that, and he did these dual tones for all the panels that were a story within a story. And as you can see, it definitely has a separation. Like, you know, when it's the part where Hero's talking and telling the story, and then what is the actual story. And the way he did it is just fantastic. So,
and you're
also, I like that.
Let's see if I can find it.
It looks fantastic. And you're also Andrew. You're also lettering.
Yes, that's correct.
Which it's a different animal in itself. I'm sure as you're doing it, you're realizing, oh, I could have left a little bit more room here. I can move this. I'm covering artwork because on the first page in the last panel, you cover a lot of body with those right there. Yeah.
Yep.
A little bit of face and a little bit of her lower body, but it's not so bad. I mean, you had to do it, but as you go, you'll learn that.
Well, that's one of the things I'm cleaning up during the pre-press process is there's a lot of word balloons. Like this top panel here, the word balloons are pretty tight. But if you get into other word balloons where I got kind of loose, like this one down here at the bottom of this panel, it's a little loose. There's a little extra room. It's not hiding any real art. It's just hiding a little bit of the background, so it's not like it's overlapping a character, so it's not as bad. But I do get into points where like this top one, this wow, it doesn't really take up, there's a lot of white in that panel, in that word balloon, but it doesn't really hurt the fact because it's not, it's only covering up background. But there are other panels throughout the book where I took a little bit of liberty and added way too much extra room within the word balloons. So I'm going to go through and clean some of those up. And that's just the normal process of making it better. You go through and you find something that just doesn't work. It just doesn't stand out right. And you take the opportunity to clean it up before you go to print. And that's what we're doing now.
Now, were there any, as you began, right, and you started story and thumbnailing and stuff, were there any issues that you came up with along the way that you were like, okay, maybe we're going a little too fast, or maybe we need to slow down? Is there anything?
Oh, absolutely. What actually happened, we were probably into chapter 3 or chapter 4, and we realized that the entire focus of the book was on Hero. There was nothing outside of Hero. Everything was Hero. And the truth of the matter is there are things happening out in the world, especially the introduction of the bad guy. And we actually went back and said, okay, we need to break the story up slightly, and we need to insert a couple of pages to let people know that there's other stuff happening. And we took an opportunity to do that in 3 different spots. And one of them just made the story so much better is because a lot of people have noted that they really like the Archer character, the ferret Archer character, Hawkeye. And originally in the book, he shows up, he tells a story, and then he leaves and he says goodbye. Well, because we took the opportunity add some extra pages. We actually brought him back later on in the book, and he does some fun heroic stuff, and it was a lot of fun to do. But because we took a second and said, let's fill in some gaps, let's fill in some holes, because originally the bad guy who's out there in the world and he's plotting stuff, he doesn't appear until the very last, the extra chapter. So we went back and actually put his story and his introduction into the book. Actually, he comes in like right after chapter 1, right after Hero gets named. So that's pretty cool. I'll actually show you one of those pages here.
So
this
yeah,
is
it sounds like you get into you go, oh, you know what, this kind of happens with a lot of artists, especially when you're dealing with like you're the sole vision writing art wise.
Mm-hmm.
You go, oh, this moment needs to be bigger, and I need to create sort of crescendo to get to it, or something.
Yep.
You start to realize that, you know, how beats are important, and how movement is, you know, blocking is important to get to crescendo to that particular moment where it has all the weight it should have, because that's really how you get people engaged story-wise. You know, I don't think you'll have ever a problem engaging people art-wise, and the coloring is really good. But the thing that will carry all the fans from book 1 to book 2, from book 2 to book 3,
Mm-hmm.
is story. And I definitely know a little bit about like realizing, oh, this moment needs to be bigger, or this moment needs to have something more that it has.
Yep. Oh, this is actually one of the pages we went back and added, which the character of Hawkeye shows back up again. What's actually kind of funny is in the story, Hero and Pudge are kind of just wandering through the woods on their journey, and there's a pack of 3 wolves that are actually hunting them, and they don't even know it yet. And Hawkeye actually, when the image right before this shows the wolves like right around the corner from where Hero and Pudge are at, and Hawkeye shows up and kind of encourages them to go in the other direction. And it's one of these things where there's things happening, and we don't necessarily want the heroes to know what's happening, but it's happening right there, right around the corner from where they're at. And it's one of the little twists we put in the story, in the fact that Hero is being sought by the bad guy and his minions, and he doesn't know it until the very end when he comes across the snake. The snake is kind of a blabbermouth and kind of blabs the whole story. But what Hero doesn't realize, and what the readers get to find out, is that there are other forces coming after him, and they've been on his trail the entire time. So we're building to more things. So it's just one of those little fun things we decided to add in there. And it was one of those things where we realized, after we got through chapter 4, we were already on chapter 5, that, you know, there's some beats that we missed. And so we got an opportunity to go back and insert them. So, and that's one of the good things about doing a creator-owned book is, like I've said this before, if it takes 10 pages to tell a chapter, you do it in 10 pages. If it takes 45 pages, you do 45 pages. You're not stuck anywhere in any set format. When you're doing your own book, you can do anything you want. So it's very free and fun to think about it that way. Is you're not stuck making it your book comic book size. You're not stuck making each issue 22 pages. You know, you can do whatever you want. The sky's the limit, and wherever your mind and your story takes you is where you get to go. And that's a lot of fun.
Now, one thing I picked up on, especially even right here in this image, is gesture. And one thing I haven't talked about in other shows is gesture, and the importance of what is my character's sort of like his sort of gait. What's his walk? What's his style? And right now I can see here that Hawkeye has a lot of bravado.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Actually, I got another image of him. Hold on. This is a page or 2 away. Well, actually, what's happening in this particular part of the story is the wolves are hunting a hero, but they don't know what he looks like. They don't know anything about him. And they come across Hawkeye, and they actually ask him, they say, "Are you a hero?" Actually, I'll bring up that page. I'll read this to you. It's actually I think it's kind of funny. They're looking for Hero, and what you don't realize is Hero and Pudge are right here in the background of this page, from the previous page. And he says, "Hello, fellas. How fortunate for me to backtrack this enchanted wood, simply to confirm that my compatriots made their egress, safe from misfortune or strife, only to stumble upon a band of merry troublemakers." And the wolves look at him. One looks at it, the other one says, "What did he say?" And the other wolf says, "I don't know. I don't speak gibberish." And the main wolf says, "Are you a hero?" And Hawkeye says, "Well, now, I've been called a rascal and a scamp, a mischief maker and a heartbreaker, most recently a scoundrel, but a hero? Sure, you can call me a hero." And the wolves are like, "Get him," because obviously they think he's the hero that they're looking for. And the next page has him. Let me see. I forgot what page I'm on, but this is another example of Avery taking my pages and coloring them and just making them absolutely fantastic. But here's the next page where Hawkeye is actually swinging through the trees, leading the wolves on in a whole different direction. And he's screaming, "Let the chase begin." And then he says, "Ha ha ha." And that's really bad. Ha 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 in a panel. That's one of the ones I'm going to go back and redo. But you see in this bottom panel, Hero says, "Do you hear laughing?" And he says, "Must be the wind," but they're actually further off in the background. And Hawkeye is taking the wolves in a whole different direction, and it's kind of a good thing. But
for a moment here, let's bring Avery in, because this is
okay.
something I picked up on really scouring through the pages on indieGoGo. Now, we actually have not really seen this in comics, but I've seen what he's doing here, this sort of watercolor texture look, children's books, and I'm wondering if that's where he gets any inspiration.
Children's books, animation. I grew up watching the old Disney and Warner Brothers cartoons where all the backgrounds were painted.
Right.
They were. I have colored a children's book years ago. I tend to mostly work in like role-playing game illustration, but yeah, stuff like that is what I was thinking about.
Now,
Plus,
is there any particular?
Hmm?
Is there any particular artist that you would be willing to cite as far as?
No, not really. I just going with like the old cartoons and stuff I used to watch when I was a kid, where so many of the backgrounds were painted. Plus, Andrew did a lot of this stuff in grayscale. When you digitally color gray tones and then do a color hold on top,
right,
it makes it look all painted, but it's not. It's actually very simple coloring mixed with like color holds in the gray tones, and it gives it that look. So if you do ink wash and then color underneath or on top, you can work either way depending on how your page is set up. It helps give it that look.
Why don't you talk a little bit about color holds, because what you're doing is colored holes and planes. You're trying to denote with the color holds. Foreground, midground.
Yeah. Yeah. It's to separate the blacks and the characters from some of the heavy blacks in the background. And kind of frame it a little like to help with depth of field, because sometimes when you look at something is further in the background, it's got a haze, and I try to add a lot of that and lighting effects,
right?
But also keep it bright, really cartoony,
right? And this is definitely not. I mean, there's a theory here as far as cool to warm, but not. You're basically we're seeing the characters almost their true colors all the time. We're not seeing them. Oh, they're in shade, so I gotta tinge them blue. I haven't seen a lot of that, except for sort of these stories within stories kind of thing. I've seen some of it.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that, but I do keep mostly to true color. But It does change a little whether they're at night or in the daylight. It does change a little bit. Let me see. Let me find some pages.
Yeah, and I've been going back and forth here, showing this is the original page for this one, in which the characters and the backgrounds are separate layers, and you can see in the background how I used gray wash in the trees, and then you go look at what Avery did by adding the color and kind of giving it a more realistic feel. So it's kind of cool.
Like when he's in daylight, a lot of times eventually I started. This book was colored over a long period of time. Like when he's in daylight, I try to make the browns of his fur a little warmer, and here they're not. But I still stay like to local color with the characters, and then I change the background colors, and I make maybe some of their shadows a little darker. But there's also these little lights right here in front of them.
Now I also see you're using halo around the characters.
Oh yeah, that's in the artwork.
Hey guys, I got to step away for just a quick second. I'll be right back.
Go ahead.
That's all in Andrew's artwork, those halos. And some of them are being removed in post as he goes back through it.
Yeah, because there's places where I can see where that works, like where there's movement, like him on this rope swinging.
Mm-hmm.
It does work in that one, but right below it, it's sort of a halo around Hero himself, and that makes me almost think like it almost gives you that he's not really there. Like there's a force behind him, but he's, it's almost like it's, I don't know what, almost like green screen, almost like he's not really there, but we're just denoting that he's still in the forest.
Yeah, he's going through it because when it was originally when he first published this, when he first did his first print run few years ago, it was just in black and white. So he did those halos on everything to help separate characters and foregrounds. And now that he's seeing it in color, he's like, oh wait, there's a lot of these. I can just get rid of that. In some places it works, but a lot of places he's finding, I can just get rid of that now.
Yeah, it definitely works to help in sort of in motion.
Mm-hmm.
And then I see some spots where it works, where he kind of goes Mignola-esque, and using it there works. Where he has a lot of heavy blacks. I remember seeing something where there's like some snake bones and some, in sort of a spiral of things that happen above Hero, and that really works there too.
Yeah, because in a lot of the early artists that we liked, when we were kids, a lot of comic artists did that kind of frequently because of printing and coloring techniques at the time, and you wanted to help separate the character from the background, so they would halo them. Well, that stuck with Andrew. It stayed. That influence.
Right.
Like he saw that little thing that people did sometime, and he really liked it, and it got incorporated heavy into his style. But now that he's seeing it in color, there's a lot of it. It won't be there, and a lot of it won't be there in the final version.
Now, tell us from day one, like you're already starting to color book 2.
Yes.
Have you? Because as myself, I always go, well, I'm a good artist, I'm a good inker, a passable colorist. But as I learn and I go, and as the more I do, I go, oh, I should go back and kind of do that. Now, have you been growing within this project and realizing, oh, there's better ways to do this, or there's a better way to skin this cat, or things like that?
Oh yeah, you pick up new tricks. My speed varies based on how often I work. Like when I'm drawing and painting regularly, my speed gets a lot faster. And there's things that Andrew does that helps make this faster. Like when I get the files, the characters and the backgrounds are separate. So it makes it a lot easier to start isolating things.
Oh, that's actually pretty cool that you get him.
Yeah, like color holding all the backgrounds.
So much easier.
Yeah. I just let me share here.
Go ahead.
Like this background right here.
Hey guys, I'm back. Sorry about that.
It's there.
Right.
Like, you know, and with a lot of some pages are different. With a lot of this, it's not colored underneath the line art. It's colored on top of the line art.
Okay, so you're okay because they're separate. You're turning the line art into multiply too.
No, just the color.
Just the color.
The color is set to multiply. Now, if I color underneath artwork, I can color flat with just doing layers of multiply and screen to do my shadows and highlights.
Right.
Like I'll bring up a color image. Let me see. Yeah. Okay. Like this, most of it's colored. This is a Red Rooster drawing I did because I'm a big Mitch Brettweiser fan. The art is set to multiply. The art's not set to multiply on Andrew's pages.
Right.
The art's set to multiply, and then that's flatted. That's just flat colors.
Right.
Like the layer is set to normal. Layer set to normal. These layers are set to either or are all set to normal. And then I go on top of the artwork with different screen layers. And then there's a texture layer right there for brush. Like if you get in close on these blacks, you can see brush strokes going through it.
Yeah.
That's a texture set to screens with a really, really low opacity.
So yeah, I hate to say it, but most of what he's talking about, I have no idea how to do it. I know how to set a layer to multiply, but I don't do it. I usually everything is just one on top of the other, and then I leave that up to him for the purpose of coloring, and I'm glad it works.
Now, on your guys' channel, or do you have individual channels, or you have one channel?
We have individual channels, yes. Mine's Misfit Corner Comics, and his is Comics and Illustration Studio 7.62.
Maybe we can get PS Melter to put both their channels in.
What's up, Melter?
If you guys could talk, if you guys write something in the chat, he can sort of link to your guys' stuff. But on Avery, on your channel, do you do any sort of process stuff and tutorial type stuff? Or
no, I don't do tutorials at all. No, I just hang out and color pages and chat with whoever shows up.
He does. He tries to do a lot of live streaming. So
yeah, I just live stream, maybe post like short sped up videos of me working on something. I do little videos about what I bought if I go to the comic shop sometimes.
Yeah, and I do a little bit of everything on my channel. When we do a live stream Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays at 7:30 Eastern time, and what we usually do is Avery's drawing a page and I'm drawing something, and I'm usually also recording the drawing that I'm doing. So the next day I put it up as a video, as a speed video. I add music behind it and some commentary on it. But we do that in order to reach out to people, talk to people on a regular basis at a set time, but then also in order to make a video for the next day. So there's a little bit of everything on my channel, but Avery mainly does live streams where he just goes and does his thing. So
we had somebody join us late. I want to introduce him to you guys. His name is Tank Ferret.
Hey.
He's got a lot of credits to his name and has done a lot of different things. And he does into a lot of merchandising, things like that.
Oh, okay, cool.
That's right. I like That's right. How you doing, guys?
Doing all right, man.
I like this project.
Thank you.
I am much better right now.
Awesome.
My daughter and her boyfriend last week went up to New York. They drove up to New York and they were on the way back down. They left early this morning and they got to Virginia and I guess a snowstorm. And she just called to let us know that they stopped at a hotel. They checked and they're going to stay the night in a hotel. And I'd been waiting for that call to make sure that they were okay. And now that I know they're fine, I can breathe a
that's
sigh
great.
of relief and I can relax and
No, there are. I always tell people, there are motel chains that even if you are destitute, as long as you're not like stinky homeless bum quality, they might give you a room for free just because the weather outside is lethal.
well,
So always check in at a hotel or motel or whatever.
Well, I had secretly, being a dad, I always know that stuff like this is going to happen. So I was ready to transfer money into her checking account because we have accounts, and I have an account at the same bank she does. So I was just waiting for her to say, "Hey, Dad, we're at the hotel," and boom, it's done. They're covered.
Way to go, Dad. That's a good job.
Oh yeah, I'm hero dad all the time. I try to be, at least.
Awesome.
But yeah, now I can talk comics and not have to worry about them anymore. So.
As I'm watching, Todd does some of the most beautiful breakdowns. He does outstanding portfolio reviews, and he's real gentle about it too. He's one of the more gentle guys about it. And I'm watching this. I'm looking at your digital artwork and how it's all neatly separated. That's very nicely done. Because have you guys thought of like doing a little one of those little story coloring books? Just recycle some of this artwork.
Actually, we have. I actually printed the first 2 chapters as an oversized 9.5 or 8.5 by 11 coloring book, and actually made them available when I went to shows. They didn't sell very well, but I ended up giving a bunch of them away. But because the original art has a lot of the gray washes on them, and it's very difficult to remove that because I actually did it on the art itself. It's not strictly black and white in order for people to actually use as a coloring book. So I actually started working on a story that was intended to be a coloring book, and I can actually show you some of those pages.
Dude,
real quick.
if you're gonna give away copies, you need to give them away to big publishers. And say, hey, look at this product I have, full and complete. And are you interested in optioning this? And dude, go fishing. Seriously, that's how it's done. Like if you have enough to get prototype copies made of anything, any product, t-shirts, tchotchkes, comic books, novels, whatever, get some of those full copies and put them in the hands of publishers and distributors, people who do that stuff, everywhere. And start talking math and money.
Yeah, well, one of the things I mentioned in the live stream we did last night with Cross Comics is I'm very much still stuck in creator mode. I have a hard time transitioning to promotion mode or to merchandise mode or any of those other things, because like when I finished book 1, I immediately started on book 2. I didn't think about promoting or advertising and anything like that. It was I'm moving on to the next book, and I had reached out to a couple of companies in order to just sort of test the waters to see if anybody was interested, and I really didn't push it too hard because it was one of these things where if somebody's not interested, I'm going to do it on my own anyway. So I really didn't like go out there and say, hey, if I don't have a publisher to help me do this, it's never going to get published. And I never thought that way. I always thought if somebody's willing, great. I'd love to talk to somebody, but if they're not, I'm going to do it myself anyway. So.
Well, it's always good when you can go to a publisher and say, hey, look, this is viable on the market. Yep. Look, there's a physical product, especially if you have multiple products surrounding the same intellectual property. The broader the market reach potential that you could show to a potential publisher, the greedier they get, and that they also, when they see more money, they get more loose with their royalties and towards money towards you. So it's kind of, you're playing a game, John Dillard gaming the system. You are gaming a system here, and you want to entice them with, they want to see visions of millions of dollars. That's why when I was talking to Tim Lim, I was like, dude, that plush, you need to submit that plush bunny, the Thump bunny, you have prototypes. You need to submit them to major toy distributors. Because this is like, come on now, this is parody satire. That's always money. So yeah, think beyond the page as well. I could totally see some vinyl little figures for the ages 3 and up.
Oh, I'd love that. Well, one of the things that Avery did when he started coloring it is he was trying to go with a very basic color scheme in which somebody wanted to turn these into toys or into plushes. It would be very easy to do. It's not complicated at all. And he kept that in mind, where I was like, I'm not even thinking of that at all. But I'm glad he was able to help me with that. And if somebody along the line says, hey, Hero would make a wonderful plush, I'm like, let's do it, you know?
Well, a Hero vinyl 5-point articulated action figure prototype ready for, and after this, it's basically this one company's $800 for the mold for a 5-point articulation.
Mm-hmm.
And the figures actually get pretty affordable after that. But that's your setup fee. So for $500, you could have a prototype in your hand that you're ready to go. And it's especially with something cartoony and illustrative like you have. It reminds me a lot of the late 80s, early 90s Disney stuff. Yeah, it was fun and full of adventure and very all ages friendly. Like, I caught my parents, occasionally watching an episode of Tailspin with me, and I have to go back and watch those episodes again to figure out what the heck they were interested in.
Can you tell us a little bit about this big bear that has sort of almost like rocky type structure coming out of his?
These images that I'm showing right now were originally intended to be. It was a story idea I came up with for Hero to literally be a coloring book. Each of these panels was actually a full page, and it's about little Hero and little Pudge, and they find this book, and in the book is different stories about different gods, and the first one is Zeus, the god of the sky, and the story was talking about how Zeus, the only thing that was on the earth or on the planet was the sky. It was just nothing but open sky, and Zeus was the lord of the sky. And all of a sudden, he comes across this gigantic ice mountain, and on the ice mountain is the ice giant. Oh crap! It's a Norse god. I forgot what his name is. Oh, Avery, I'm sure you know. What is the Norse god of the frost giants? Ygritte or something like that. Yeah, something like that. That's who this character is, and they have a battle. And Mike did a little bit of research, and there is a story in which Zeus and the frost giants fight, and they literally create the world after their battle, and that's what this story was kind of like. And he finds this ice giant who challenges him, and they have a fight and they have a battle, and then Zeus sends down a lightning bolt and splits open the giant mountain of ice, and the polar bear creature falls through it. And when he does, there's this huge explosion, and the ice melts and makes the oceans, and rocks come out of the ground and make the earth. And that part of the story introduces Zeus's two brothers, Hades, the ruler of the underworld, and Poseidon, the ruler of the seas. And then the next two stories, there was one about Poseidon and there was one about Hades. So, and actually the one about Hades, Mike and I were talking about it, and we were like, what can we do about Hades to make it kind of a fun story and not a scary story? And we mixed it in with the Three Blind Mice. And the Three Blind Mice are traveling into Hades, into the underworld, and they get stopped by Hades. And he tells them in the story, he says, you can pass, but you have to answer, a riddle or something. And it's a combination of the Three Blind Mice, Hades, as well as the fable story from Harry Potter, the one about the three brothers and meeting death and so forth. So we kind of took a twist on that, but we still haven't. I haven't this illustration here of of Zeus flying and the thunderbolt coming down is the last illustration I did for the story. I think there's at least 12 more pages for this chapter. I just haven't gone back to finish them.
Mr. Brady from the chat reminds us it's Ymir.
Ymir, that's right. That's it. Sorry. Yeah, I'm really bad with names and pronunciations and all. That's one of the reasons why I have Mike with me. And of course he's not here right this second, but he's the one that helps me in that direction.
And maybe where we can even find Mike. Does Mike have his own channel or
No, he doesn't have his own channel. He just stops in every now and then. I just checked on him and he was jumping in the shower, so I'm not sure if he's going to be able to join or not, but he's not a big talker. He lets me do all the talking, so
he doesn't have a choice.
Shut up, Avery.
No one has a choice.
Avery's been trying to talk for the last half hour, and I won't let him talk, you see.
I haven't tried to say a word.
He knows better. That's the thing. He knows.
Yeah, I've been dealing with this fast for 30 years, dude.
Yeah, they pick on me a lot is because I'll ask a question and then I'll start answering it, and I'll go on and on and on, and then forget what I actually asked the question about.
Yep.
And there's been times where I've been with Michael and Avery, and I'll ask them a question, and they'll give me an answer, and then like a half hour later, I'll ask them the same question, and they jump all over me and says, "You've already asked us, and we've already given you an answer." And I always say the same thing. Well, damn it! If I was listening the first time, I wouldn't be asking again. But that's
Mike
just me.
is your son, right?
Yes.
Okay.
He is my son.
Yeah, you say that like it's a disappointment.
No. He's wonderful. He's a good kid.
Now he's co-writer, correct?
Yes. A lot of what he helps me do is the plotting, the story setup. He does research. Matter of fact, in the story within a story, we introduce the god Hephaestus, but we didn't want to call him Hephaestus. I wanted to call him something else. So I asked Mike, I said, I want you to go dig into mythology and find something that we can use to reference this god, but without calling him his name. And he came back and said there was an island, a city that Hephaestus was the patron god of, and the city was called Lemnos. So in the book, we call the character Lemnos, and it's kind of a nod to Hephaestus without coming out and saying that's him right there. That's him right there on the page. But so he helped me with that, and it's always a good thing.
I asked you yesterday about some of your inspiration and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Would you go ahead and tell my audience where do you get some of that inspiration for the type of story you're telling, and overall, what do you remember from your childhood that wanted you to do an all ages book?
We pull from a lot of different sources. My kids are avid readers. We're movie goers. We're movie watchers. We read books. We read comics. We watch a lot of animation. So we pull from a lot of different things. You can see influences from Disney in our art. You can see influences from Harry Potter as one of the ones that we kind of structured the overall story arc based on Harry Potter. Animation, Batman the Animated Series, the Justice League cartoons, the old stuff from the 80s, the Thundercats and the G.I. Joe. Those were big, huge influences. Comic-wise, everything from Mickey Mouse comics all the way up to Dark Knight Returns, even though you're not going to see a lot of that in here, but it was part of an influence. Actually, Alan Moore had a little bit of an influence on this book in the fact that I had read an interview with him one time where he was talking about Watchmen, and he had mentioned that there are no no thought balloons in Watchmen. And the reason is the story was told by narration and by what the people were saying. You did not get to see what people were thinking, because if you were like watching a movie, you're not seeing what they're thinking. And therefore, book 1 and book 2 of Hero, there's no thought balloons at all. I actually had to put a thought balloon, or I kind of decided I might change it to a whisper, because at one point Hero is being faced by something and he turns and looks over and he sees something, and it's not necessarily in view where you can tell what it is. And it would be a cheat for me to have him think, oh, there's that thing over there. But I didn't want to use a thought balloon. And it was because of the fact that I read that Alan Moore article like 20, 30 years ago, and that's stuck with me ever since. So I know that's a weird way, but yeah, Watchmen was kind of an influence on this book.
I read a lot of work that has way too much, too many thought balloons. Honestly,
Yeah.
The only way they really kind of work is to sort of tell me that, sort of Frank Miller style, where the character would get injured. So now he's got 3 broken ribs, and you might have a cough, and he's sort of saying as he's sort of trudging through this battle, am I going to make it? I can start to feel blood filling in my lungs. And those were the type of thought balloons to me that sort of worked, because you were getting inside the character's head what was going on with him internally.
Right, right.
Story and thought balloons, it's kind of weird, to be honest. I mean, it's not modern. And
yeah.
You know,
Well, one of my goals had always been to try to tell the story, to convey the story to the readers using the imagery and the dialogue and nothing more. You know, if you have to read a character's thoughts in order to understand what they're doing, you kind of failed. You know, yes, it's good for getting some of the background information on a particular scene, but if you can't tell that character's in pain, or that character's frightened, or that character's, you know, being sarcastic based on what you're looking at and what you're reading, you have to find out about it by reading their thoughts. You're not there. You're not getting it. So I try to do everything in which, when you're looking at the characters, you're reading their dialogue, you understand exactly where they're coming from. So sometimes I succeed and sometimes I fail and fall flat on my face. But there's a lot of times. My wife is not a comic book person at all. She gets very, very bored with comic books, because as a novel reader, she will sit down and she'll read a whole novel in a whole day. And she reads a comic and she's like, okay, where's the next one? This is like 10 pages of a novel. Where's the rest of it? She doesn't have the mentality to go into a comic and enjoy it for what it is. She's ready for the next issue. So I will oftentimes, when I draw a sequence, I'll show it to her. No word balloons, no nothing. I say, honey, tell me what's happening in this scene. And if she can tell me, I see this character is doing this, I see this happens, and this happens, and this happens. And if what she sees is the exact translation of what I was wanting her to see, I've succeeded. And I've had to do that so many times. You take it to somebody who's not a comic book person and you tell them, what do you see in this story? And if they can translate it correctly, properly into what you intended, you've done a good job. And there's been times I've showed her pages where she's like, I have no freaking idea what you're trying to do here. And I go, okay, back to the drawing board.
It sounds like she needs credit, though.
Oh, she knows I love her, so that's it. That's all she needs. I'm just kidding.
She might need
lucky her.
Yeah, lucky her. That's right. Yeah, she's a good woman. Thank God I've got her. I don't know what I would do without her.
Obviously, Hero's a family affair.
Yes.
And of course, you've known Avery for 30 years plus, and he's family. So this is big time family affair. And I'm really hoping that we can get some people on board to look at the campaign. And if they, I mean, tell, because we got 16 viewers now. Tell how many pages are in book 1 again.
There's 162 story pages. The main story is 150 pages. There's a 4-page epilogue and an 8-page backup story. When I originally designed the book, you got the main story, you got the epilogue, then you got a bunch of pinups and extra stuff, and then at the very end was the extra 8-page story. I wanted to set it up just like when you go see a Marvel movie and there's like an extra scene at the end that's kind of important or kind of funny or kind of leading into something else. That's exactly what that extra 8-page scene was. So there's a total of 162 story pages, all full color, fully beautifully done by Avery, and with some extras. The first book is going to come in at 176 pages, but I am absolutely working on some extra pages to add into it. So that is.
Do you guys have a website, by the way?
Yes, we do. MisfitCorner.com. We'll link you to our site. It has character listings. It talks about the creators. There's a gallery of images of commissions that I've gotten over the years. There's a a link to my online portfolio there, which has several pages, pinup pages, splash pages. The pages that I'm showing off here from the coloring book is in the gallery, so people can check it out.
Might I make a request?
Sure.
That I love to see is when I see, you do this digitally and make it really easy on yourself, but you see the thumbnail, then you see the pencil, then you see the ink, maybe the washes, and then Avery's colors, and they're all right there. They're on one rectangle of process.
Well, one of the things I started to do when we launched the campaign was I went into my YouTube channel. I started making some videos that were entitled "Who is Hero?" And there's 2 videos up, and I'm working on a third, and there's probably going to be several when it's all said and done. But the first one takes a look at the very first image that I drew, and it tells the story of where the idea came from and so forth. And the second one talks about the first 4 pages that I actually did back in 2011 before I actually scrapped the idea and put it in a drawer for a long time. But I am going to do another one where it's going to walk through the process, the idea of coming up with the idea, sketching it out, doing the thumbnail, doing the layout, doing the pencils, doing the inks, and then passing it off to Avery to do the coloring. So that is, I'm going to make a video documenting that process. So if you guys get an opportunity, go check out Misfit Corner Comics on YouTube. That's where you can find us.
Now, do you have any of the black and white books left? Like, how much do you have left?
I ordered them from on demand from Lulu. I usually, whenever I would go to a show, I'd order like 15 to 20 copies just to have them on hand. The last show I did was in February, where I set up at a library event, and I sold almost all the books. So I have a few left over. I have a store on my website, but I'm not currently listing them there, just simply because we're trying to shift the focus towards the color version. But if somebody is interested in getting the original black and white versions, which I still have a few here, and I can always order more if necessary. But I actually, since I started launching the campaign, I've actually gotten orders for the black and white versions. People want to see what the original material looked like. So I may make more of those available. Right this second, I don't have any to sell, but I can easily get them if somebody's interested. Somebody asked me once, says, why don't you just make it so that we can go and order it directly from Lulu? And I don't like that idea, because I like to sign the books. I like to also include a sketch with the books. So when you get them from me, you get more than if you just went to Lulu and ordered a copy for yourself. You would get the book, that'd be great, but there's some personal things I like to add to getting the book that you can't get unless you get it directly from me.
How far are you willing to go to do a convention?
Last year, well, after my old 9-to-5 job went away, and they gave me that nice big severance package, we ended up doing, I think it was 13 conventions last year in 2017. I went as far up as Pennsylvania to the Steel City Comic Con, which I had a great time there, all the way down to Miami, and we did Heroes Con, we did Atlanta, we did Dragon Con, we did Mega Con, we did I went to New York. I didn't have a table in New York, but I was there. But we did a whole bunch of conventions. And right now we're focused more on local shows here either in Jacksonville or within the surrounding area, just because now that I'm back to work full time, it's very difficult to take like a Friday off. So I try to stay local. We don't have anything going on between now and the end of the year. I think the next show that we're looking into is one in either February or March here in Jacksonville called the Collective Con. I haven't committed to a table yet, but it is on my list to reach out to. So,
what about Orlando in March?
We'll have to see. Every time I do MegaCon in Orlando, I make enough to break even on the table. So now that I'll have the copies, hopefully we'll have copies of the color book available, it might be worth it to do it. But as of right this second, I haven't committed to it. And to be honest with you, it's already December. I may have missed out on my opportunity. I might be able to get on the waiting list, but I don't know if I'll be able to get a table at this point. That's one of those shows that it tends to sell out pretty quickly when they make them available. So,
were you guys at Tampa?
No, we did. Yes, actually, yeah. Me and Mike did Tampa Bay. We did do Tampa Bay. Actually, no, we didn't. We went to the convention. We didn't have a table at the convention. I'm mixing it up a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, that was one we went to go check out to see if it was one we were going to be interested in, and I had applied last year in 2017, and they sent me back the information, said, "Oh, you've been accepted. Great. Here's the dates." And I looked at the dates and went, "Wait a minute, those dates look really familiar." And I had already committed to the SuperCon down in Fort Lauderdale for that same weekend. And I'm like, I can't be in two places at once, so I had to cancel Tampa Bay because I was doing SuperCon. But that kind of thing happens, and that's one of the things. That's another reason why I need Michael to help me, because he helps me a lot with some of the dates and the calendars, and tries not to let me book myself, because I would book as many conventions as I could if I had the money. So
right. Now let's go back a little bit back to
okay,
to story wise.
Okay,
there must be a point where you go, oh, I have an idea what I want to do for book one, but you actually said something yesterday on Crosses about having an idea where this ends, and that every character we see, minor or not, will eventually play into this end. And how did it grow at all, or is it still sort of up in the air? There may be a lot of adventures to get Hero through before we get to his end, or what do you got going on? What can you tell us that you're willing to share?
Well, plot-wise, we know exactly how book 3 ends. We know how book 4 starts. We know what leads book 3 into book 4. Where book 4 goes, where it ends, we still don't know yet. We haven't sat down and started figuring that out yet. But the end chapter, the final chapter, the big hoopla, the big climatic thing that happens at the end, we know some very specific points that are going to happen, but the overall story, we don't know all the details. But I do know exactly how the story ends. I know exactly where it ends. I know who's there, and I know who's not there. That's one of the things that when I told it to my wife, she's like, "Oh, I can't believe you're going to do that to those characters." And I'm like, "Nope. This is part of the story. It has to happen." And it's if you remember in the last Harry Potter movie, where everybody comes together and there's a big old battle and a big old war, and not everybody makes it out in the end, something very, very similar to that is going to happen in Hero's Tale. Everybody's going to come together. A lot of characters, minor and major, are going to come together, and they're going to be part of this climactic ending, and not everybody's going to make it through to the end of the story.
Not as far as Harry Potter goes. I honestly remember seeing it and watching it. I couldn't tell you who didn't make it out. It wasn't anybody that really mattered. You know what I mean? So,
okay.
But you might want to have stakes. Obviously, stakes are key to story. You know that.
Yep.
Granted, now I wouldn't get rid of Rick Grimes, or I wouldn't get rid of the main character Fear, but that happened. But stakes, losing characters along the way that sort of tug at the heartstrings are really key. I mean, obviously, when Mickey died and Rocky, we were just broken up about it, right? So these things need to happen for the story, for the characters to grow, one. Two, for the story to sort of have that ability to keep you transitioning from 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 4 to 6 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8. You want to have something that goes, oh man, I really didn't like that character is a favorite of mine. He went out with such a bang. I'm gonna keep going. I'm not. You know what I mean? You don't want people to give up on you don't want your stakes to be so high that they go, a show without Rick Grimes? What is this?
Yep. Well, I have a tendency when it comes to TV shows or comics, stuff that is serialized like that. A lot of movies nowadays have sequels and so forth. I usually get an attachment to one or two characters, and they're not necessarily the main characters. Like you mentioned Walking Dead. My favorite characters are Maggie and Carol. As long as Maggie and Carol are in the show, I don't care if Rick Grimes isn't in there anymore, because he wasn't. Yeah, he was a pivotal part of the story, but I fell in love with Carol and Maggie. They are the strongest, most interesting characters to me on that show, and as long as they're still there, I'm following it. I'm still with it. When it came to Fear the Walking Dead, it was Nick. I absolutely despise that character at the beginning of the series. At the beginning of the series, I was begging for him to get bitten and eaten and die. But he matured and he grew through the series to the point where he was my major focus. And then they did something horrible, and I'm kind of a little bit lost. But they've introduced some new characters that I really enjoy. There's some new characters in the last season that I'm like, okay, I'm starting to really like these guys. I think I have a new crop of characters I can follow. I want to do that with Hero. I want to introduce you to a character that you're going to say, I love this person. And when they show back up again, I'm going to really enjoy it. We were joking the other day. We were talking about Buffy and Angel. And I was saying that anytime I watched an episode of Angel and they listed the guy that plays Spike in the credits, I was like, yes, this is going to be a great episode, because I loved his character. Every time he showed up, it's like, okay, I'm going to sit back up and enjoy the heck out of this episode. I don't care if he's in it for 2 minutes or a half hour or the whole episode. I know I'm going to enjoy it because I just loved it every time he showed up on screen. In early Buffy episodes, he was kind of a pain in the butt, and not that, but he grew into a character that I would watch the show just for him. And I have characters that I want to define in Hero that every time you see him, somebody out there is going to say, that's my favorite. I love it when he shows up. And then somebody mentioned in the stream last night about, but if I was thinking about breaking off and doing adventures of these individual characters, that is absolutely a possibility.
Yeah, that was me.
Oh, that was you. Okay, I knew somebody did. I couldn't remember who, but yeah, it's absolutely a possibility. So,
and I like his you know, his sort of style, his bravado, his, you know, what he's bringing. I really like that kind of character, and the look of him. It's just all fit. I mean, sometimes these things are sometimes like lightning. You know, when people ask me all the time, "Will you make a logo?" And I go, "Sure, I'll make a logo. If you like it, you pay me for it. If you don't, you don't." Because it's like lightning. You know, they're not really that hard to do, but sometimes they don't have it. They don't, you know, they're just not quite exactly what the person's looking for. And then sometimes you find magic in a bottle, and bam, oh wow, that really works. I really like it. So I don't even, you know, if I do one and the person doesn't like it, I don't even charge them for it, because just move on to the next person, because you'll eventually strike it, you know. And Hawkeye is one of those characters. To me, is like, wow, it's lightning. You know, I like him. I'm actually gonna do a fan piece of him because he's really cool looking.
Very cool. Well, the piece I'm actually showing right now, this is actually a splash page from book 3. It's part of the tale of when Hero's mom and dad meet, and in it we introduce a whole bunch of new characters. In the middle is Hero's mom and dad. Her name is Cherie and his name is Sam. But over to the far right of Sam is Hawkeye, there with a sword. So he's part of the story about when they first met. But then there's a bunch of other characters in here that may become very pivotal later on in the story. So
now, is there a part of you that is going, you know what, I want to eventually have a tiger, and I want to do monkeys. I want, I mean, are you going, I want to hit some of these major groups and sort of see what happens, or have you really sketched ahead and know?
There are some characters that I know. I went ahead and scrolled down to some of my character designs. These were some of the character designs for book 3. This was Peng, the otter that a hero meets, drawn up in a samurai outfit. I drew this. And I absolutely loved it. So he became an integral character in book 3. This right here is a handmaid for his sister, who I originally named Grace, but I'm not sure if her name is Faith or Grace. This is the fox one that Hero meets, and this is his first love. And she is a badass. She is awesome. I just love this character. Every time I draw her, every time I put her into the story, I love her completely more and more. And it's one of the reasons why Hero falls in love with her. It's because I love her. Right. But this was her original design. She doesn't look exactly like that. And then these are a couple other characters. This was another handmaid who is a bunny rabbit, who's for some reason the smile on her face just gave her a psychotic look. And she's very much a very crazy spirited person in the story.
In your sleep.
She's gonna kill you in your sleep. Oh, absolutely. There's
Just
no
the smile,
issue with that.
The eyes and the smile.
Yep. And then there's a group called the Seven Legendary Warriors, or were they fighters or warriors? Crap, I already forgot. But there's a this one is Master Neo, who is the bull, or was it? I think he's a bison. Oh, I forget. I know it's in my notes somewhere. But he was a master of the hammer, and then there was a bunny rabbit who's the master of the bow stick. And there was another one. Let me see. I have another one up here. This is the master of the sword. Her name's Master Yang, and she's a lamb. I mean, come on. When you think of lambs, you think of sword fighters, don't you?
Lamb
Of course. Yeah. Oh, shut up, Avery.
Wah, wah.
Yeah. Let me see who else was in here. Oh, this was Hawkeye's original design. I actually still have this original sketch somewhere.
I don't know what he is now, but there he kind of looks like an otter.
Well, he was supposed to be a ferret, but I drew his head way too big in this sketch.
Yeah.
His head is it's bigger than his shoulders almost. So when I drew him later on, he kind of his proportions got a little bit more realistic. But he was originally supposed to be a ferret.
So we're seeing a lot of these smaller type furry animals. Are we gonna ever see? Oh wait, what's that?
This is the god Hades.
Oh lordy.
Yes, he's a little scary looking.
Crustacean.
Yep. Well, one of the things about gods is they can take multiple forms, but his I guess totem would be a spider. Is the closest thing to it was be a spider. Actually, let me show you. This is a double page spread that's actually part of book 2. Let me go up to it real quick. This is John Malin really liked this one a lot. Whoop, here it is. This image is part of the story for chapter book 2, in which he finds out that he needs to find all of his siblings, and that each of them has been chosen as a champion by one of the gods. By one of the 12 gods. And it was my editor that went through and he noted, wait a minute, you got the monkey, the eagle, the bumblebee, the hawk, the bunny rabbit, the dove, the fawn, the bear, the peacock, the spider, the ram, the dolphin, the octopus, and the cheetah. And he did a quick calculation and said, wait a minute, there's 13 characters on this page. And I said, you're right, there is 13. Because we got somebody that's kind of snuck into this image. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but there's a spoiler in here somewhere. But each of these totems represents one of the gods. Like the bear is Ares, eagle is Zeus.
Well, there's only one image. We're not seeing the person's face or the character's face.
Well, this is what if you see them in the world, this is their representation. Right. Now they can take multiple forms, but these are their main representations. Hera being the peacock, Hades being the spider.
But yeah, see everyone with the squid's face. Is there a reason for that?
Just because he was added later.
Oh.
Actually, originally Poseidon was supposed to be the dolphin, and it wasn't strong enough for Poseidon, so we added him as the squid. The dolphin is, I think the dolphin's supposed to be Hestia, but I have to double check. I've got notes written down. I can't remember all this stuff, but off top of my head. But
what do you like to ink with?
This was the tools that I use the most. I get that question a lot. A Uniball Vision fine pen 0.07, one of the ones you can just buy at Target, is probably one of the most popular ones I use. And then I use the let's see. Yeah, so you were thinking I was going to say something like a Micron 0.01 pen and whatnot. I have those, but I don't use them that much. The other pen I use the most of is a Precision rollerball. That's the extra fine V5 one. Yeah, these are here. I'll show you. These are the maybe. Oh, wait a minute. I gotta stop screen sharing. Hold on. Yeah. Yeah, these two pens are the ones I use the most of. The Precision V5 is my fine point, and the Uniball Vision. and I use Sharpies. And I recently, Avery kind of turned me on to, where is it? I have a brush pen that we use, a Pentel brush pen. Let's see, this right here. This is, you can find these at like Michael's, and they come with refillable ink cartridges, which you not necessarily can find at Michael's. I had to actually pick up a package of these at the refills while I was in New York at the New York Comic Con. But this is a pretty cool pen. I use it mainly just when I'm doing sketching and just laying out when I want to throw down some inks and all, but I haven't used it for actually production stuff yet. The only other pen that I use on a regular basis is one of these old things, one of these quill pens.
Yeah.
And a lot of this image right here, the image of the animals was done with the quill pen. So, and what's kind of cool about this one is I actually did each character separately. I would draw one character, then I'd scan it in, then I'd draw the next character next to it, and then I'd layer on top of it. That way, each of these characters is a different layer, and that'll end up helping Avery when it comes to the coloring of it. But it also allows me to add the white stroke around each character to keep them separate, even though some of the characters are lying right on top of each other.
Right.
So, yeah, it's just one of those things I do because that's the way I like to keep the images clean, even if it's not necessarily a clean image.
Now, all these conventions you went to, and you didn't get into Archaea or Fantagraphic books and give them your black and white copies?
There were a few that I stopped by and checked out and I shared, but I mean, I was there more or less to meet fans and to sell the books to them than I was to try to get a publishing deal. Because at the time I was self-publishing. It wasn't until I got to New York later that year that I started talking to actual publishers. And the majority of the bigger publishers are like, go check out our website. We have submission guidelines there. We're not going to take anything out of anybody's hand at a show like this. So it was like, all right, I tried. But it's one of those things where each company has submission guidelines. You really have to go and look into them and find out what they are. I did apply. I did send Hero Book 1 and Book 2, the black and white version, to Image Comics. I sent them out in last November. And they have a thing where if you don't hear back from them in 30 days, consider it a pass. Well, by the time December rolled around and January rolled around, I hadn't heard back from them. And thank God, because I mean, I started getting into the Comics Gate, into the YouTubes, and finding out all these stuff about some of their creators. It's not a company I really would want to have worked for. You know, there was a time when Image Comics was like the place to go if you're going to put out an independent book. But after a lot of the type of people that they hire and a lot of the people that work for them, I really don't want to work there at all. I don't want my book through there. And they don't do kid-friendly stuff anyway. So, but about 6 months later, I got a letter and they returned my copies of my books and they sent me a letter said they weren't interested. I'm like, oh, thank God. Because I'd hate to have to say, no, I'm not interested in going with you guys. So, but people, I've heard a lot of people say, you know, if you're part of Comicsgate, you're never going to get work in the big two. You know, you're tainting yourself because of the stigma of Comicsgate. And I have no desire to work for Marvel or DC or any of those. I'm doing my own thing, you know. I have no desire to, you know. I don't want to draw Batman. I really don't. I don't want to draw Spider-Man. I'd rather draw Hero.
No, I get you there. That there's, you know, the few things that I would actually say yes to drawing are probably not things anyone would ever be able to pick.
Yeah. Well, Avery and I talked about that one time about if Marvel came to us and said, hey, we want you to work for us, what book would you work on? And my answer was Power Pack. I would draw Power Pack. I'd write and draw Power Pack. I even know a great story for it, but I don't think they would come to me and ask me for that, but that's okay. I'll change the name and make it into something else and publish it sometime in the future.
Yeah, my things are kind of weird. Go back to my childhood, like G.I. Joe and Star Trek and stuff like that. You know, to some degree that I would be willing to draw. But yeah, I never sat there and waited for any kind of. I stopped doing samples for companies like that in the late '90s, you know, and then decided that well, actually, I had a job which satiated that side of my brain where I was being creative, but I wasn't really drawing.
Right.
But I never looked back, until recently, and started to realize that I have some things I want to do and some things I want to say and some things I want to show you, and that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah. See, I'd rather be known as the creator of Hero than an artist that worked on Batman. I'd rather be known for something that I created from scratch, something that I created with my kids. And I don't know about you, but I think that is probably one of my biggest accomplishments, other than actually having these wonderful children, is that they helped me with this book.
Right.
So whether it's a success or whether it, never makes a single dime, I mean, it exists. People are one day going to find this. They're going to see it. They're going to like it. They're going to share it with somebody. And that's wonderful in my mind.
Now, how about you, Avery? You mentioned being an illustrator.
Mm-hmm.
You do some drawing yourself?
I've done I do a lot of stuff for I used to do a lot of stuff for the White Wolf Vampire games, World of Darkness. I did some stuff at Shadowline and Heavy Metal years ago.
Anything you can show us to give us an idea of what kind of style you work in, or?
It doesn't really gel with this project. Some of it, although the children's book I colored at Shadowline, I don't have any of that stuff on my computer, so I can't show you. It's been a long time.
Do you want me to look it up and show it to him?
No.
Okay. I was offering, I was being a friend. I was being a buddy.
I don't know if I can show some of the last illustrations I did for a World of Darkness game. I don't know if the book's out.
Avery, can you show that illustration you did for Wep? I mean, he showed it on his channel.
Oh yeah, I'm doing some stuff for Weaponized Nerd Rage for his role-playing game. Hold on, I can bring one of those up.
Excellent. Yeah, he did an image for Wep that's just fantastic. This is like pure Avery. I mean, it's like if you've seen his coloring and you've seen some of his digital work, what he's going to show you now is just like a combination of all of that in one image, and I think Wep was really impressed, and I was blown away. So,
let me find it, man.
You're gonna have to take it. You have to take the screen off me, though. Not that I mind,
Finding it's going to be the thing.
So while he's looking for it, the plan obviously is if you don't meet the goal this time, you're going to come back out after the holidays are over. You mentioned February. Anything you're going to do anything differently? Is there something you go, oh, you know what? We're do this next time.
There were two things that we're absolutely going to do. We were going to add some additional pages. There's that extra short story. I'm not sure if it's going to be 4 pages or 8 pages. I haven't actually sat down and laid it out yet, but that is definitely got to be added to whatever version of book 1 comes out next. There has to be this additional story. I imagine it to be black and white. So if I can't get Avery to color it, it'll just be something special that's added. If he does have time and can color it, that's even better. But that's definitely going to be added. And I've already started working on a new wraparound cover, something that was going to be intended specifically for the color version, because the cover that I show off, that's on the indieGoGo, and that's pretty much everywhere I show off the project, was the cover that was for the black and white edition. And we're planning, and I'm already started laying it out, a brand new wraparound cover that'll be on. It was something that I was going to be doing while the campaign was working, something that you could follow along on my YouTube channel as I create this image. And so that's definitely also going to happen. So
this image here that you're showing, with the turtles and the waterfall,
yep.
It definitely needs to sort of be showcased the next time out.
Well, that's actually a double page spread from book 2. Avery is actually getting ready to color it. So if you're interested in following along, you can actually see him as he works on that double page spread.
Oh, I think I am interested.
Yeah, that's pages.
That's heavy work you just laid out for him.
Oh yeah. That's pages 12 and 13 of book 2, and yep.
Yeah.
I really don't think I should show that illustration, Andrew.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. I didn't want to put you on the spot, but I knew Wep had already showed it, so.
Yeah, but it may not be appropriate for this channel.
I gotcha.
Because there's kind of they're not detailed, but there's kind of some breasts.
Oh my gosh, I know. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Okay,
I could show this other one I did for him though, because he showed it on his Discord.
Okay.
He has shown it.
I hate putting Avery on the spot, but I just love it when he shows off his stuff.
There's this illustration.
Right.
It's for a Ghost Storm concept in his role playing game.
Nice. All digital, right?
Yeah. This piece is all digital.
Really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, he blows me away sometimes with what he can do with digital. I've never been a student of the digital art because I'm really bad at it. I stick to just black and white and gray.
Well, I taught myself, man. A part of, that's when I did that stuff at Shadowline years ago. I was just starting to learn. I got asked to do some stuff, and I was just like, okay. And I mucked it all up, but I learned. That's where I learned how to do some of this stuff.
Well, I think Hero's a learning process for you as well, isn't it?
A little bit.
You took a lot of what you learned on those other products and brought it to Hero. So
yes,
yeah.
And you know what? There's a synergy now that you're stuck. Now you're doing this with him for the rest of your life. By the way.
No, actually.
Oh no! He's committed to book 2, to coloring book 2, and he's already told me I got to find somebody else for book 3. So
what?
Yeah. Well, if he can, like if it's off the ground and running.
Yeah.
If it's off the ground and running and it's profitable and it's doing really good, yeah, I'm bouncing.
Well, plus we also have other ideas we want to do too.
Yeah, we have other things where I'll be doing the art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hero's not the end all to be all of Misfit Corner Comics. It's the beginning.
Yeah.
It's the first book.
Like this isn't none of this is mine. I want to do some stuff where I'm the artist and it's partly mine.
Right.
Yeah, he has a duo of characters that he introduced me to, and I just fell in love with it. I'm like, dude, I was ready to start writing the story. I brainstormed the story idea. I haven't actually sat down and written it yet, but it's something that if the two of us can work, it's 100% Avery, and it's going to be gorgeous, and it's something that we want to work on, but we're trying to finish this one first. Mm-hmm. Book 1 and book 2, because they're already done, drawn. It was important to get them colored and get them out there. But once that's done, we're going to roll right into the next project, and I can't wait for that to happen. It's probably going to happen probably summertime next year, because it's going to take him several months to finish coloring book 2. But once that's done, we're going to roll right into something else, and there's going to be so much more for people to follow along with. So
yeah. Now, but if Hero's not up and running and doing really, really well, he needs a colorist. I'll still be doing book 3.
Now, what if it was doing well enough where you could have flatter or multiple flatters? Is something? No.
I don't color other people's artwork. I do this because it's my friend.
Okay.
Yeah, and once then it's moving on. Once it's up and running and doing good, because what I'm doing isn't difficult. Anybody that knows how to color can do this.
Right.
It's really, really simple.
Well, he makes it look simple.
Right.
I don't think it is. I think it's fantastic.
Anybody that knows how to color in Photoshop looks at what I'm doing and go and is going eh.
Well, there you go. I can't color in Photoshop.
But again, we don't really have the. That's why I asked about seeing the thumbnail, the pencil, the ink, the color, as to really, so that on the website you're really showing what this is what I do, but this is what Avery does, because I think that's key, and that may help you find, like, some people can look at something and sort of they know the engine of how it worked. You know what I mean? And so when you are looking for a colorist, having those things might be key to, this is a process. And if you can't do what he's doing, then because it looks great and it has to sort of, you want that consistency, even if it ends up in someone else's hands. They basically have to do what he did,
Yeah, yeah.
or else the jig is up, sort of, and you got to pull him back. Oh, come back over. I need you to do 3 and 4.
Well, Avery convinced me that this book needed to be in color, and I was willing to let him do it because I in my mind, black and white and gray is perfect. But he showed me that there's so much more that can be done with this, and I'm just truthfully happy that he's here for this project. And if we end up having to find somebody else for book 3, that only means we were successful, that we made enough money to where Avery could focus on other projects and do it full time and so forth. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing for us to have to go out and find somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
It actually means we're doing great.
Exactly. Right. That's exactly.
If Avery is stuck coloring Hero all the way to book 10, that means we haven't sold nothing.
Yeah.
Just so everyone knows, PS Melter has been putting all of our channels and Twitters and all, links to the everything in there. And if you're not following us all, please do so. If you're watching this, because you guys have 800 hours worth of videos or something.
Well, I have over 800 videos. A good about 250 or plus are drawing videos. There's other videos in there. I do comic reviews, steelbook case reviews, Lego builds. I mean, just anything I enjoy that Mike and I are into, we do videos about. I mean, I have a video from yesterday in which I was walking through Target and we saw the new Fortnite toys that were out. And I'm like, oh, I got to make a video about this. And so, I mean, anything that makes me, that brings joy to myself, I can say is what I make videos about. But the majority of them are drawing Hero in the process, and so there's lots of them there. You guys, if you want to see, from start to finish how some of these things happen, at least from my point, from layout to pencil to inking, there's a lot of it out there. And
as far as what I'm seeing, like even looking at this page with the mushrooms on the trees and stuff, there's, even though this book is an all ages book, the characters are up there on top of this. Is that a skull, by the way? It almost reminds me of a skull. So they're on top of this skull and they're small and everything, but the work is lush and beautiful and extraordinary. Like very pro, Okay. So I know if you got a kid or you got a niece or a nephew, let's get this campaign up to where it needs to be. It only has how many days left? Like 14?
Yeah, I think it's only up for another 2 weeks. We had talked about extending it, but the idea was if we got really close to our goal, we'd extend it. But we're still far from our goal. So we would rather let it end without reaching its goal and then relaunch it at a time when more people could probably see it, because like the guys in Fanspeak said, one of the biggest problems that I had with the campaign is I launched it during the holidays where nobody has any money, nobody's out there looking for stuff like this.
You know what?
So
I was ready to go in November, and Mike Miller said, no, wait. And what did he do?
Yeah.
He did his own campaign.
Well,
it started in November and finished. So, you know what? Everyone has their opinion, and I know Chester has some knowledge on the board game side of things about how people spend in crowdfunding and stuff. But you're giving a lot of bang for the buck here, and I don't see why. It's almost like the all ages sort of thing is like I don't know what to call it, but I don't want to call it a curse, but it's like this may be an all ages book because anybody can read it, but it has the look and feel of something that just has anamorphic characters in it, and it's not all ages. It's for well, again, all ages means everybody.
Yes,
But
yes.
I sometimes almost think like that tag sort of brings everything down to a different demographic. And I'm
Right,
not sure
right.
it's fair
Yeah.
for that tag to do so.
Yeah, people sort of assume, oh, it's just a kid's book. It's like, well, all ages means, well, we grew up on Jim Henson, you know.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing. That's the
He's
kind
thinking like Dark Crystal and stuff like
Yeah,
that, where
Right,
that was,
right.
yeah. Well, that's
And
like this is one of the splash pages. This is actually from book 1. This is one of the splash pages that the original art is 17 by 28 inches, and I take it and I put it up on display at my table when I go to conventions. And this is one that people will stop and go, "Whoa, check that out!" That same with the turtles. The turtles was a really popular image. I put those out on the table, and people would walk by and stop and look at it, and I got them. I could tell them about the project. I can tell them about the art, and most of the time I could sell them a copy of the book. But that's the hard part, is getting it out in front of people, showing it to people. If I was to tell you that this is a kid-friendly action adventure graphic novel and then show you this page, this isn't, when you think kid-friendly, this isn't what you're thinking of, but it's absolutely kid-friendly. This is actually
Yeah.
a funny part of the story. This scene takes place right after they meet Hawkeye, and Hawkeye tells him this wild tale of this giant lizard that he fought all morning long with. And as Hero, after they say goodbye, they're walking through the forest and they're climbing up on these rocks. And Pudge asks Hero, he says, "Do you think there are really giants out there in the world?" And Hero says to him, "Well, says, I don't really know, but I guess we'll find out together." And then you turn and you open up this double page spread, and they're standing on this huge skull that's like embedded in the trees, that's been there for centuries. And it's kind of like, that's kind of our little, yeah, there's things out there, there's big things out there, and they're coming, and we're going to see it. And this is, they don't even know that they're walking on history, so
Let's talk a little bit about current comics, because
okay.
there is something going on. There are a lot of books that have pulled creators from web comics and stuff that they draw in this style that is kid friendly. But Lumberjanes isn't really a kid friendly book. It might be sort of a teen friendly book for females, but it's drawn in a style that's kid friendly.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Um, well, we talked a little bit before we aired about Isola, right? That looks very animated. That's the same team from Gotham Academy, which was a kid-friendly book, right? And it actually won awards. It won, the colorist won awards for coloring. The book won awards for best new book, I think, that year, or something like that. And I think, is it Brandon Fletcher won an award?
Yeah, Brandon Fletcher and Carl Kerschel are the creators of that book.
Right. So these books, kid friendly. Sometimes there's artists out there that are kid friendly. Like David Anka, to me, is sort of kid friendly. I don't necessarily like his stuff on Moon Knight, but it is sort of less is more. I sometimes I like less is more, like Chris Samnee. I like. Mark Lamming. I love Mark Lamming's 007. All that was colored like crap, but Mark Lamming's 007 was really great. And he's showing you all the inks and stuff like that on Twitter and on Facebook. But yeah, colored by somebody named Triona something. And it was just bad. There were some holds that weren't full. Like she had messed up some holds and stuff. It was really bad. This work here, this is a kid-friendly book, and only the characters, only the physical characters themselves actually seem like something that you see when you see kid-friendly. The backgrounds are lush. The detail in the like in the skull and the trees and the leaves and like the mountains and stuff, that's all lush and really well detailed. But yeah, you have sort of an animated style with your physical beings. And you know what? That I mean, there's something very pleasant and appealing. And then what happens is you hand it over to Avery, and he makes it like shine.
Oh yes. Oh yeah.
Actually, just makes it pop and shine, and it really takes down, because like you said, you're using a ballpoint. He actually brings it back to that quality of animation. You know what I mean? You actually draw it so stylistically detailed and sharp, but he actually brings you back down a little bit so that it has the perfect sort of nuances that go on.
He adds the level of realism that the story needs, you know, with the lush backgrounds. I mean,
Right.
yes, I can draw a tree and I can draw leaves, and maybe it looks realistic, but when you add the color to it and it just pops out at you,
Yeah.
you realize you start to think that these characters are actually physically there, you know. And I think that's a great advantage I have in this story, is that, yeah, I can design a character and I can draw him sitting in a tree like this particular character is, but when you see this fully colored, you're going to believe that character sitting in a tree, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I really want to say that I know you're a good artist in your own right, Avery, but you might get known for your ability to the way you're interpreting this art and what you're doing with it. This might actually be something you get known for, because it reminds me a little bit of what, like, we talked about Carl Kerschel, and I think her name is Michelle Azacorn or something like that. That she's the one that does she's one of those people that hides behind sort of a nicknames and things. It's like Razzie Kazzy or something like that, or no, Sassy Razzie. So it's Michelle Sassy Razzie on Facebook, but on Twitter it's just M something. And
Right.
in the comics she does, it's M Kazzy or something weird like that. But her name is, I think it's Michelle Azacorn, and her work is just very simple. Like, I mean, it makes all these artists that she works with, the work just shine and brings it to a different level. Like we talked about, Isola is just beautiful book.
Yep.
And there's a lot. I mean, as far as I always talk about what I call masterclass books, and that's one of a masterclass book. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Black Monday Murders, another masterclass book. As far as the synergy between art, color, and writing, definitely a masterclass. Velvet is a masterclass book.
Wasn't that Mike Perkins?
No.
I'm thinking of something
Steve
else.
Epting is.
Yeah, Steve Epting. Okay.
Lazarus is another masterclass book.
Yep. Anything with Sean Murphy in it, you know, like Criminal and all that. Those are fantastic books.
Like The Wake and Joe the Barbarian and White Knight. These are master class books.
Yep.
That you know, because it's the perfect team. There's nothing wrong with it. You know, artistically, it's like it's showing you something way above what you normally see. But then again, you take everything as a total, and it just works so well. Now, a lot of people don't know Black Monday Murders, but I recommend it all the time. If you, I'm sure you know the artist Tom Cocker.
Yeah, I picked up a few issues in my LCS's 50-cent bin. So it's one of those ones where I found it and go, this is incredibly cool. I want to find the trades or the graphic novel collections, and I haven't actually found it at a good price yet, but that's definitely on my list. The Black Monday stuff, that was really, really good.
There's certain characters that you always see in certain hues and stuff, so it's just way above the normal process of coloring and, you know, getting the inks and then coloring them and stuff. And you know what? There's something we said about what you guys are putting together, you and Avery. There's something, you know, the two of you together are bringing it to a different level, you know. And then when you do have to find somebody, I hope they can really match that, because it would actually be sort of a shame if they can't.
You know, I hate to say it, but a part of me hopes we fail so I can keep Avery on the book for a long, long time. But then again, that's like he wants it to be successful, so that I have to do 1,000 sketches for every copy of the book that I sell. And there's a part of me that's like, oh God, I'd hate to do that. But then there's another part of me that says I can't wait to do it. And so we find the positive and the in all the negative situations. So
I wanted to sell 3,000, 4,000.
Hey, that might happen eventually. But one of the things I thought about doing, and I don't know, I haven't actually said it, but I used to joke around whenever we went to conventions that if you see a book on Friday and you really like it, you should pick it up, because by Sunday we're going to jack the price up, because we got to, instead of dropping the prices on Sunday, we're going to jack the price up. But there's a good chance when we relaunch this indieGoGo that $20 tier may not exist anymore. You know, somebody might have hit me with a reality stick and made me realize, you know, that's way too cheap for what you're offering. That might end up being a $30 tier, you know? So I hope people would take advantage of it now, but if you don't, it might not come around the way you think next time. So this just a little warning out there. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but a lot of people keep telling me that I keep really lowballing all my stuff. So
plus, it does become a hardback at a certain point.
Yeah, this is a book I actually printed. I did a very, very small print run, I think of like maybe 3 copies of both books 1 and 2 in hardback, just to see how they look. And they were beautiful, but it was also the black and white and gray. And in hardback, my heart just melted, because this is exactly what I want to see. And I can't wait to see Hero in full color in a hardback edition. And trust me, it's going to happen. But if we can't get the backing that we need, it's the difference between a $25 hardcover and a $55 hardcover. You know, if I've only got enough money to print 100 copies, it's not affordable. But if I can get enough where there's enough backers behind it, we can get the price down. That's what a lot of people don't realize, is that when you're helping out these indieGoGos, the more money they raise, the cheaper it costs for them to get the books, and the more books they can make available to you. You know, it's not just about printing a book and getting a book in your hand. It's about getting it at a price where you can make it available, because a full color 8.5 by 11 200-page book, if you have to print 50 copies, is going to cost $65 a copy. That's just not feasible. I can't ask anybody for that. But if I could get 250 backers, now you're talking a reasonable price, and it means more people get it at the highest quality we could possibly achieve, at a price where, you know, it's great for everybody. So,
well, let me say this about sort of our community. We're creating a second tier of it, basically. And I'm going to tell the people out there that there's a tier of creators that you've already backed. Please don't let that sway you, because there's a few books that you've backed you're never going to see. I hate to tell you that, but you're never going to see them. So you backed them. You backed them when there was no artwork, because you liked the idea and maybe who was working on or whatever, but you're never going to see that book. I'm sorry to tell you that, but that's the unfortunate thing. But don't let that sway you from books where he's got all the black and white artwork done. This book is done.
The color's done. Yeah, well,
it's ready to go.
Yeah, that was one of the bad timing of launching the indieGoGo, was because I wanted all the color files to be done before we launched the book, and Avery finished it at the end of October. And I'm like, I don't want to wait till February. I don't want to wait till January. I want to do it now. We've got it done. Let's get it out in front of people and show them what we got. And that was maybe being a little too reckless. But you know, sometimes you have to do stuff, and you have to do something, and you have to fail in order to come back and do it better the next time. Yeah, that's just part of life. Right. Everybody should know that lesson by now.
And if we don't have, if it doesn't get there and we'll get you back on the next time too, because
thank you.
I'm definitely a believer in the book. I definitely love everything I see. You know, when we originally showed this campaign, I said, "Oh, we got to have these people on," and that's basically why I reached out to you guys, because we were looking at your campaign without you being there, going, "There's nothing I don't like here." Now, granted, Chester brought up the fact that Hero is the name of the character and the name of the book. What might be missing is sort of a subtitle, Hero.
Yes.
Because when I was putting together this video, I was having and making little posts and stuff. I was having a little bit of trouble calling it, like I was saying, the creators of Hero, and then it stopped, because I was like, it needed something.
That's kind of something that I'm thinking about with the new cover, with the wraparound cover, is to have a subtitle. I've gone back and forth numerous times, like The Journey Begins or A Hero's Journey Begins or something like that. And to me, that's a little too corny. And I'm trying to find a subtitle that works. Don't laugh. Avery knows I really like corny stuff,
Yeah.
but I got to come up with a subtitle. There has to be a subtitle.
There does
other than Hero Book
realize
1, it needs that one little extra oof, you know.
I didn't realize it until I started to try to talk about it, and I wanted to separate you guys from the title, but hero just being a word, it just made it like there's just something missing, and I knew right away. I was like, man, I went looking through all of your Twitter, going, there's got to be something here I can do. I can call it, and it was like, oh man. So yeah, when you get that's definitely. And by the way, when this video ends and stuff, and I'll put the thumbnail I picked up from your Twitter. It's a nice, decent, nice rectangle of hero and
okay, excellent.
and Pudge and stuff. So that'll be there. I don't know why they don't allow you to do that when you set up a live event, but you're not able to. But you know, and I always talk about the video afterwards for a couple of days. So you guys can expect that, and I definitely wish you guys could say, Chris, do you have anything? Because you've been too quiet. What's going on, Chris? Yeah, I'm over here, over medicated. Chris, your mic is muted. Is that? Did I hear him snoring?
Hey, this wouldn't be the first time I put somebody to sleep sitting here telling stories. So. It's happened before.
He takes care of them.
Okay. Well, one of the things I wanted to show you, part of the idea of a subtitle, the original black and white comic versions of the book, on the back covers, we used a quote from the story. The first book, it was, "He will be the greatest hero our world has ever known," and the second book, which I have here, the quote was, "Hero, find them all." And that those each had a specific reference to something that happens, something major that happens in the story. But as you can tell, those are really long subtitles and would not work. So, but I mean, I did have something connecting each book, but it wasn't a proper subtitle. So I definitely do have to come up with a subtitle. It'll happen. I'll figure it out eventually.
Yeah, I think in one of my posts I called it Hero Book 1. I think I used that term. Because I was like, it just needs something a little more to separate you guys from it, the creators, yada yada. Yeah. Why don't you give us that elevator pitch you've been working on?
Sure.
Days now.
Somebody got a stopwatch. Let me see if I can do this properly. Okay. All right. Hero is a kid-friendly. It's the first book in a series of kid-friendly action-adventure graphic novels. It's a story of a small woodland creature that when he's born, it is prophesied that he'll be the greatest hero the world has ever known, so his mother names him Hero. When he grows up, he and his best friend Pudge the bird go out into the world to find adventure and to find the true meaning of what a hero is all about. I forgot a line. When he grows up, he's small, he's short, he's skinny. He doesn't look anything like what you would think a hero would look like. And that's kind of the point. Being a hero has nothing to do with what you look like. It has to do with your actions and your intentions. And when he grows up, he and his best friend Pudge head out into the world to find adventure and to find the true meaning of being a hero. And then here's the other half of the pitch. What Hero doesn't know is that somewhere out in the world, an evil force is growing. A villain has been told it is prophesied that he'll take over the world, and he's in the process of building an army to do just that. How exactly does Hero and this villain, their stories intertwine? Find out in Hero Book 1. How did I do? Was that 60 seconds?
You did awesome.
Okay.
Oh, that was really great.
I have a tendency to babble on if you guys haven't figured that out yet. So, but yeah, there is. What's so funny is when Mike and I first laid out Book 1, the entire story was to build up to get to the part where he fights this snake. And at that point, originally in the original idea, after they fought the snake, Pudge was going to leave and go back home, and Hero was going to continue on the journey on his own. And we really didn't know where he was going to go. We just knew we had to get to this point with the snake. But by the time we got there, we realized we had an overarching storyline that we were in the process of developing, something so much bigger than we originally thought. It literally was 10 times the story we originally came up with. And book 2 expands on that even further. Book 3 expands on that even further than that. And we're getting to take Hero and Pudge. We're getting to put them in different worlds. They're getting to go and meet different characters. They're getting to go on different adventures. And in the background, the bad guy's coming. The bad guy's looking for him. The bad guy wants to either capture or destroy him, simply because it's been prophesied that a hero will stop the bad guy. And based solely on his name, the bad guy is out there looking for the hero in order to stop him and not fulfill this prophecy. And that's it.
That's awesome.
That's the extended pitch.
You guys want to give out your talk about where people can find you, your channel?
Oh yeah, the easiest place to find me, either on Twitter or on YouTube, is just Misfit Corner Comics. You can find me both places there, and that's usually where I'm mostly active. I do have a Facebook page, but it's one of those afterthought pages where every now and then I'll post something there. But Twitter and YouTube, I am on YouTube every day. I post videos every day, whether it be a drawing video, a live stream, or today Michael went out and he picked up the new Lego set for Spider-Man that had Spider-Man versus Venom, and he put the set together on camera, and I sped it up and added music to it. So that video is up right now. If you guys are interested in Legos, we do that as well.
How do those videos do? Do they do well?
Sometimes the ones that I got really shocked with. Michael found these new mega construct called breakout beasts. They're like dragons that were in these hard eggs, and there were 5 of them, and he bought a couple of them, and I put them all together. Those videos did great. I didn't know people were out there looking for them, but believe it or not, I have a couple of videos on my channel that have over 2,000 views. The one that had the most for the longest time, Michael and I were walking through Walmart, and they had a huge display of Shark Week toys. Right before Shark Week came out, there were toys and plushies, and I just pulled out my camera and I started videotaping. We were showing them off, and we posted the video, is new Shark Week toys at Walmart. It had over 2,000 views the last time I checked. There's people out there, they look for the craziest things. But that's like one of my most popular videos on my channel, and I got tons and tons of comments of people going, "Oh, my store doesn't have those yet," or "I'm looking for this and I'm looking for that," and I'm like, that's awesome. I mean, that's cool. But it's one of those things that if we find something that we enjoy, that we like, we make a video about it. That's cool. And sometimes we get subscribers because of it. But hey, every chance to reach out and show somebody something is fantastic. So
my daughter watches nothing but opening of blind bags and
really
and eggs that have all kinds of different mystery things in them, and you name it. She there's a kid on here. His name is Ryan something, and he makes millions of dollars opening toys.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, we went to a Christmas party with my wife's family today, and one of my nephews, he's 12. I kind of pulled him aside and I said, "Hey, dude, what do you want for Christmas?" And I said, "What are you into right now?" Because it changes from year to year. He's got interests in different things, and he actually said, "Well, I'm really into Fortnite right now." And I said, "Dude, go check out my YouTube video. We found Fortnite toys at Target, and we made a video about it." He's like, "Oh, okay, I'll go check it out." Like, oh my God, the things that'll connect to people, you have no idea. So
there's gonna be some new thing that's coming out that reminds me. Well, the game is sort of a block kind of playing game. Like a lot of people can play at once, and you remember those party games? Kung Fu, was it Kung Fu Chaos? Kung Fu Chaos. Remember Kung Fu Chaos was like 6 people could play at a time or whatever.
Yeah.
So this game is, I don't know, I can't remember the name, if it's Plankos or whatever, but it's like Lego style type characters, and they do these dances and stuff, and they did sort of a parody of Fortnite where the character they sort of put parachute in.
Yeah.
And one character pulls his chute, and then it like pulls off his head or something like that. So they're really sort of playing on the Fortnite thing. And I thought that's supposed to be a game that's coming out next year. It's probably going to be huge.
Very cool.
Like I'm like Minecraft huge, you know.
It's
And
something we'll have to look forward to then.
I remember those. What was it Fusion Frenzy? Was a game, a party game. You remember that one?
I think I've heard the name, but I don't think I've ever played it. Is it anything like, Cards Against Humanity, or is it like a role playing game?
No, it's more of a. Some of the games were like race games, or some of them were almost like American Gladiator style type games, and you had to get through the obstacles and the first person to get there. Yeah, so it was just a block party game,
Okay.
similar to like Mario Kart, but with like all kinds of different things. I think there's one where you were in a ball and you had to run the character to get through the course, like a hamster ball thing. So there was a lot of that kind of stuff. Kung Fu Chaos was like mashing buttons against enemies, and whoever beat the most enemies won, or something like that. But it was a lot of weird environments and different things. But yeah, mostly the game was based on fighting. All right, Avery, why don't you tell us where we can find you?
My YouTube channel is Comics and Illustrations Studio 7.62, and I'm on Twitter at Illustration 762.
You seem like you do a lot of commission work, commercial work, and or comic work. Is there anything you want to say to anybody that if they're looking for a particular thing, or is there something you also have time for that help?
Oh no, I have a day job, and coloring Hero is taking up all my time.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, folks. I've taken him. He's off the market for the moment.
Monopolized his time.
Yeah. And there's some other projects we want to start working on.
And this will be all under Misfit Corner.
Yeah. It'll be written by Andrew with art by me, and it'll be some of the stuff that's more PG-13.
And
Right.
Some of the properties are mine, and some of them are Avery's. So you're going to get to see some of Avery's original stuff as well. So
you guys are building an imprint.
Very much so. Very much so.
You're building a brand with Hero, but you're building an imprint beyond that.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Anything you want to talk about in the last closing minutes here that you want to share? Maybe the next step on that.
Follow our YouTube channels. That's where we are not shy about sharing everything we do. So if you follow the YouTube channels, you follow any of the live streams, every time we do something new, we pretty much talk about it on YouTube. We make a video about it. We talk about character designs. We talk about ideas. We talk about the whole process. So if you're interested in seeing how things are made, follow our channels, because we're going to share every step of the way with you. So yeah, I have a tendency to when I'm not at home and I come up with an idea, I kick myself because I'm not in front of the computer where I can make a video about it, and I have to wait till I get home. And I am not going to do that sketch that I just thought of until I'm at home sitting in front of the computer and I can share it with people. So it's just how our minds work nowadays. So
that said, in closing, I want to say one thing. This is a great project, and even if we have to wait for it to come down and go back up at a later date because of the timing of it, no big deal, because I'm into it. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to put my money on it. The last thing I want to say is please subscribe to all of us. As you know, I'm on a lot of other channels on a daily basis, but my channel, I really try to bring you something so that you can learn or hear from the creators or get their side of things. Now, we don't necessarily, these are Comicsgate creators, but we don't necessarily talk about that because I really don't think that's really that pertinent anymore. What's pertinent is filling a void. We're all trying to fill a void. There's a void there. You guys are saying, "Oh my God, the product they're giving us, I don't want it." But we're going to bring you stuff that we have. These are passion projects. Now, you may not be into this guy's, you may not be into that guy's, but what we're doing is trying to fill that void of, we're not doing apolitical book or political books. We're not trying to shove any agenda down your throats. What we're just trying to do is bring you cool characters and ideas and things that we've been cooking up. And you know what? This is sort of the second wave. We talk about Tales from Beyond the Gate a lot on a lot of the channels. And that's a bunch of us creators that are working inside of one book alongside some of the top tier creators like Ethan Van Sciver and John Malin. And I'm going to be drawing a story by Mike Barron. And
That's awesome.
That's
James
very, very
Hudnall.
cool.
James Hudnall has a story that we're looking for an artist for. So these are things that we're cooking up because we're trying to fill that void. We don't want comics to die. None of us do. And we're putting so much blood, sweat, and tears into all these things. Obviously, the thing that Andrew and Avery are cooking up shows you nothing but passion and love that they have for the medium. And the synergy between these two guys, bringing you something that looks so pro and so really well done, top-notch book. This is a graphic novel that is giving you a lot of bang for its buck. So stick with us. We're all trying to do our best, and we're all learning from each other. And we have a lot of, I'm always willing to share with any of you people. So smash the like button for me. Please subscribe if you're not a subscriber. And we'll see you next time. We're out. Good night.
Thanks a lot, Todd. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.